Welcome to the League of Free Worlds Information System.
Hello, future viewers. Welcome back. Today we're going to Draco on the more successful path so far. Unfortunately, this game does... it has very limited configuration options for the controller. I think it works well enough. Using the shoulder buttons to accelerate is... well, it feels a little different from the usual dual analogs and using triggers to fire, but I haven't had any real problems with the controls once I memorized the buttons. Okay, what does going on the offense look like?
Offensive anti-Navy measures are now underway. Successful penetration of the Draco system can be confirmed. Gallinair has also been fully secured. Navy resources have been detained in the region of the Draco warp hole. Intelligence gathering is in operation. Key military targets within the Draco system are currently being ascertained. Certain enemy resource supply routes have been noted within the Hecate zone. Disrupting these supplies would have an immediate effect on the Imperial arms manufacturing process. A tanker convoy is being tracked to a spaceport. You are required to launch an attack on all tankers within this convoy and prevent them docking at their destination. You are free to engage all defending craft.
A good old supply raid, or I should say... yeah, supply lines. Attacking enemy supply lines is a great idea. Also, I imagine that the people in the League are pretty fired up overall over the chance to be on the offense for a change. Apparently they've been fighting on the defensive for a long time. Though I imagine, considering how long the war has been going on, there's been at least some back and forth. And yeah, I'm gonna ignore enemy fighters for this one. They're not important to the mission, and I have a little bit of cover. Not that it really matters. When fighters are trying to chase you, they're actually not very good at doing much. They are, however, fairly lethal to your ships. That's when they're the biggest problem. By that I mean larger fleet craft. Triple lasers have really good damage per second. Also, these tankers' shields seem to be a fair bit stronger than their hull. Not that it makes a huge difference, just something of note. Most Colony Wars missions don't go that smooth. There's a lot of indications in this series of missions that the Navy was caught by surprise when the League went through the Draco warp hole.
The introduction of League forces into the Draco system is continuing as rapidly as current resource levels allow. Further incursion is projected to allow the destruction of all key Navy manufacturing facilities. Extreme care is to be taken in the distribution of broadcast information, as our presence is not yet fully recognized. Information retrieved indicates that the destroyed tankers were intended to act as tow craft for an enemy mining station. This appears to play a major role in the manufacture of visually aided missile systems.
Visually
the decision
aided?
has been taken to order its removal. Located within an asteroid belt, the mining station uses a compressed energy tractoring system to collect ore. Enter the belt and target the mining station for total destruction.
I can only assume they mean sensor-aimed or something. Tough to imagine that people are guiding missiles using the aid of the old Mark I eyeball, given the tech available.
This is command. You are
If
on
you
your
don't know
own
how to
for this.
mislead
The mining station
Fleetcraft
must be destroyed.
defenses, you're gonna have some trouble here. As far as I can tell, the burst torpedo is not very good, or at the very least, I don't know how to use it right. I'm fairly sure I was too far away, but even at close range when I fired that thing, it didn't seem to do much. But that's okay. Our other gear will be fine for this mission. Now, the mining station's shield seems to work the same no matter where you hit it, which, fair enough. But once the shield is down, the game wants you to be a little bit more particular about where you're shooting. Also, backtracking a little bit can be pretty helpful here. Also, you don't have to dodge every single laser bolt. Just dodging half of them is plenty. Anyway, once you're doing hull damage, you want to aim for the buildings on the asteroid instead of shooting at that big hunk of rock. You'll be a lot more effective that way. At least according to the game. I haven't done a whole lot of tests on it. Especially because of that visual effect when you shoot the buildings that looks like that. Oh well. I did destroy it pretty fast, so maybe there's something to it.
These are its vulnerable areas. Destruction of mining station is your priority.
Sure, I'll get right on that.
Negotiate your way out of the asteroid field, then return to base.
Commencing jump sequence.
Well, the anti-shield torpedo certainly helped to speed things up, but overall I think I'd rather have a Hydra because the lasers did most of the work there, I think. Still, a successful mission, not going to complain too much.
Intelligence scanning indicates that the Navy is attempting to inform its higher command structure of our incursion into its territory. Should this be successful, a maximum alert will be triggered, and our mission will be seriously jeopardized. Specific details reveal a communications craft has been launched towards a Navy frigate in the Selene Zone. There is no doubt that this craft carries precise information regarding our fleet and capabilities. The capture of this communications craft is required. A League cruiser will be in the facility. Disable the comms craft, then tow it to the cruiser.
So the goal seems to be to feed the Navy information that we just kind of made up. Seems like it could be pretty useful. Also, this game seems fairly vague on how quickly and through what methods communication is done.
Let's get that comms craft. Remember, we need to keep this one alive.
Now, it's a fairly small piece of space engineering, and you'd think it would be lightly armed, but actually, no, it's very heavily armed. It fires more than a frigate, possibly more than a cruiser, and it's tougher to avoid because all of the shots are coming from where you have to move towards to get your shots out on it. I mean, I can avoid it for now, but once I get close, things get kind of ugly. The good news is that it's pretty much the only threat in this mission. The only serious threat, anyway. You see, like that? I was doing evasive action that normally works in Colony Wars, but no such luck here.
Nice work. Now grab it.
There's also a couple of fighters on me, but by comparison, they're no big deal. So, Another trick that this mission plays on you is that they tell you, good job, and now bring it in. Except this is before you permanently disable the ship, so it could wake up and start firing at you again if you aren't paying attention.
You can tow this baby over to it. Good luck.
At this point, the fighters tend to stay away and take snipes at you, but as long as you change your direction a little bit on the way back, you're fine. Well, since this is going to take a while, let's talk a little bit about the general game mechanics. You may have noticed that enemy fighters shoot a lot less than the player does, even when using the same weapons. I have a couple of ideas on why that is. One is that the obvious, you can't fight overwhelming odds if a one-on-one fight would be difficult for you. I think I wouldn't necessarily object to a game where you're only really expected to take down one or two enemy fighters in dogfights in a mission. But as far as video game pacing goes, I can understand how most people would not really want to go for that. You'd have to make fighter versus fighter combat very interesting. I think the standard that I would hold a game to would be an AC versus AC fight in Armored Core. Like, very, very tense, very fast pace, and with a variety of options available to you. Well, this is also where I forgot to do something that would have been pretty useful, which is I can go back to my grapple gun and kind of rearm it to disconnect it from the Navy comms craft, and then the cruiser could pick it up. Unfortunately, it takes me a little while to figure that one out. Also, about Colony Wars 2. Well, Colony Wars 1 got a pretty good reception, and Colony Wars 2 is pretty widely considered to be better.
Shields destroyed.
You play as the Colonial Navy in that one, some 100 years after the first set of Colony Wars. And what's interesting to me, well, there's a couple, but originally in Colony Wars 1, you were supposed to be able to pick which faction to play for. But there just wasn't the space for it, so they decided to go with a more robust League campaign. And then they were able to turn things around for the sequel. The sequel has a lot of features that are kinda missing in this game. For example, taking on capital ships is generally more interesting because you have to go for weak points in that game. Or at least it's much more practical to do that than go for the Colony Wars 1 style just shooting wherever. I think I kind of prefer that. Something kind of similar to that is also done in Strike Suit Zero, although I'm fairly sure that's an unrelated game, or at least made by an unrelated team. The user interface is also improved. The game actually gives you a crosshair to make leading targets easier, so you're able to take down fighters a fair bit faster. Well, you can do that in Colony Wars 1 as well once you learn how to use the visuals, but it's much more beginner-friendly. And, yep, here's where I figured it out. And lo and behold...
Communications craft successfully captured. Well done.
Jump sequence initiated.
I'm willing to play Colony Wars 2 if there's enough demand for it after Colony Wars 1. But I don't think I'm going to move to Colony Wars 2 immediately. There's quite a bit of content here, and I think I'd like a little break from it afterwards. Alright, we have the save prompt, which means this is the end of an act.
many childhoods were lost around the rings of Selene or above the surface of Eurydice. Rookers were becoming hardened to the fluctuations of war as innocent fears were forgotten in the searing heat of battle. We hope the Navy were learning those fears as we were losing ours. We were like an organism, cells working in harmony. We felt that Draco was falling to the League and morale was high. The capture of the Navy comms craft had severed their contact with Empire control. There would never be a better time to strike.
Further
Well, we'll deal
into
with
Draco
the
is
second
now-
act later. The events of Draco are a little bit more involved than the previous couple of systems.
Gallanius.
Let's take a look at some of the details.
The Draco system lies at the heart of the Earth Empire, housing large-scale weapon and flight craft manufacturing facilities. The 6 planets are lit by 2 suns, Helios and Hecate, which are believed to have mood-altering properties. While this may sound unlikely, neural data reports held by the Body for Objective Exploration suggest that empirical evidence highlights a genuine mood shift phenomenon linked to the 2 suns. Draco was colonized between 4252 and 4321 AD with the intention of establishing a core supply base for Empire military operations. With the support of Group Commander J4TM and finance from the Militia Deposit Foundation, an exploratory cluster was dispatched to Draco with orders to assess its suitability. Rapid colonization was recommended, and a number of specialisms divided between the 6 planets. Data scans reveal that Draco is experiencing significant unrest within the civilian population, particularly on the planets Eos, Selene, and Eurydice. Despite a number of internment orders and the banning of all workplace gatherings, harsh working conditions have resulted in a non-cooperative workforce. Problem areas are now being subjected to forced repopulation.
Ooh, sounds really rough. Well, banning workplace
Draco
gatherings,
plays
huh?
a major role in supplying the colonial navy with arms and flight craft. As such, it benefits from an X4 defense rating and receives highly charged generator boosts, which strengthen its shielding. Navigational equipment may prove unreliable due to the presence of 2 suns. Flights within the proximity of Draco should be supported by analog sky readers, in addition to conventional compass systems.
I kind of like little touches like that where they talk about a couple of
Draco
implications
system.
for an unusual solar system layout.
Destroyer.
And here's
Although
a,
the number
well,
of destroyers in the Navy's fleet is unknown, and the number used by the League is classified information, it is acknowledged by both sides that more destroyers exist than any other fleet craft. However, it was not always so popular. Of the 5 original prototype models supplied to the Navy by Devasta Inc., 2 were found to be highly dangerous due to flawed cabling. One was occupied and later ransacked during a freak outbreak of face scab madness. One was sabotaged by a group of dissatisfied Marines, while the last one fell from the sky during active service, wiping out a field of children. The directors of Devasta Inc. were hounded to their graves by public officials, while the manufacturer of the destroyer was handed over to the GDX Group. It is their model which is now used by the Navy, and whose inner circuitry supplied the basis of the League's design.
many ships have kind of shaky histories, but I don't think any of them quite beat the destroyer. Also, face scab madness. I think the writers had some fun writing a lot of that backstory. Well, speaking of the story, let's talk about what happens if I didn't do so well. Like, as I said, that comms craft
Critical.
That packs a real punch right there.
Auto-ejection procedure complete.
The Navy's attack sent the League reeling, but we still felt we were being pumped into the enemy's heart. To fly through the Draco system was to pass by the factories and fuel dumps that supplied the Earth Empire with its vast killing machines. If we were to damage the Navy's ability to defeat us, this was where it must happen. We couldn't waste our chances now that we were there, flying between the twin suns and past the prying eyes of a hated empire.
So just as Draco isn't won with one act, it's not
Urgent
lost with
measures are
one lost
required
mission
for the
either.
damage sustained during Navy counterattacks.
And there's another divide within the system. We're going to explore that next time. And if you lose hard enough, you go to the same path that we're on by winning the losing path a little while back. So we're going to connect those fairly soon. Well, thanks very much for watching. I will see you next time.